Top 10 questions for your next Frisco, Texas real estate agent. Don't hire a real estate agent before you watch this video.
Hey everyone, I'm Holly Haven.
And I'm Andy Haven.
And we are the Haven Home Team. We are your North Texas resource for all things real estate.
Today we're diving into a must-watch video. If you are looking to move to North Texas, these are the top 10 questions you want to ask your real estate agent.
Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, these questions will help ensure you are hiring the right agent for your goals.
Question number 1, what is buyer representation and how does compensation work?
Andy, I think this is a great question that most buyers don't completely understand.
Yeah, and I do think with the new buyer representation kind of rules, it's become more of a question and how we are actually compensating realtors these days. So what you have to understand is you will want to ask for their buyer representation agreement or their listing agreement. This is something that you'll want to be very aware of so that you know what they are requiring of you. Generally, for buyer representation agreements, we do charge a fee, but we can get that back from the seller in most cases. So be aware that that is a fee that you might have to incur if the seller is not offering compensation, but for the most part, your realtor can likely get the seller to pay that fee.
Yeah, that fee has become a really open negotiation as part of the buying process. So really that comes into play when we make the offer. The seller is really just looking at their bottom line.
Absolutely. And you also, if at the end of the day, you're like, I just don't have the cash to pay that realtor fee, then we need to know that up front so that you're able to only see houses where that buyer fee is being paid for by the seller.
Absolutely. And what are you paying your buyer agent to do?
Yeah.
We don't just open doors. We're actually providing a service with data and comps and details. It's the information that the general consumer doesn't have, especially in the state of Texas, because we are a non-disclosure state. So even though a house may be listed on the MLS for $700,000, does that mean that's what it's worth?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also right now, we're in a buyer's market. So this does kind of give you the upper hand at this time. But just be clear that you understand what the market's doing and how that's going to affect your buyer representation agreement.
Question number 2, how will you determine my home's market value and the pricing strategy?
Yeah, this is a really good question. Home's value is not something that you can do yourself. So like the last point we stated, we are a non-disclosure state in the state of Texas. So if you go on Zillow and look up all of the homes in your neighborhood, you are still not going to get the best comp in your neighborhood. Right. You need a real estate agent to do that.
Yeah, and while that's important for the buyers to have that context before they make an offer, it is even more important for the sellers to have that information.
Yeah.
So what you think your home is worth, what you want your home to be worth, sentimental value, right? What it was worth during COVID.
Yeah. Those are not comparable numbers.
None of those things matter anymore. So we honestly, when we put a home on the market, we usually list it for, say, 6 months.
Yeah.
And those comps can change drastically in 6 months. So what we might be able to appraise or evaluate a home at today might look very different January, February, March, May, August. Every sales cycle has an impact on the value because it depends on what's happening all around us.
Yeah, and I think it's very important for your realtor to go ahead and run those comps monthly or even bi-weekly to make sure that you're still comping within the market. If your house is sitting and you're getting no showings and or if you are getting showings and all of the feedback is, oh, it's overpriced, oh, it's not what we're looking for, whatever it may be, that's when you need to kind of reassess the market and have your agent run those comps again or find a new agent who's going to be better at doing that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, what comes down more often than not is the seller doesn't want to hear that we need to lower the price.
Absolutely.
We have very few things we can control in the real estate market. We cannot change your location. In many neighborhoods, we can't change the exterior of the home even.
Yeah.
So if the home is staged well, shows appropriately, it has to be priced right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it might not be the price that's in your head, but you have to listen to your real estate agent. This is our profession and this is what we do for a living. So if we show you the numbers and unfortunately it looks like a price decrease is your only option, you might have to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, so motivation is going to be a big factor that I'm sure we'll touch on later in this video.
Question number 3, how do school districts affect my home value in Frisco, Texas?
Yeah, that's a 2-part question.
Yeah.
So inside Frisco, you have Frisco ISD, and then we also have the city of Frisco in some outlying ISDs. So both of those can make an impact.
Absolutely, and they can both be major impacts. One high school to one high school could be a totally different impact.
Yep.
Elementary schools as well. And then as we get deeper into that, ISDs make a huge difference depending on sports, what they offer within the school district, just the general feel of the school district. And within the city of Frisco, you're going to have Little Elm ISD, McKinney ISD, and Frisco ISD.
And Prosper.
And Prosper ISD.
Yep.
So if this is something that you're concerned about, especially whenever you're buying, ask your agent up front, hey, I only want to be in Frisco ISD, I only want to be in Prosper ISD, whatever that may be, but in the city of Frisco, so that you're not ending up in a home that you realize is the wrong school district. That would be very unfortunate.
And attendance boundaries within a school district do change
often.
I mean, we have growing school districts that are adding schools every year, and we have school districts that are now starting to shut down older campuses and consolidate. So those things will make a difference. Knowing what your attendance zone boundary is a huge impact on your values. And a lot of times our buyers and our sellers don't necessarily understand that.
No, absolutely. And then if you're a seller who you've been in your home for 20 years, you don't have kids in the school district, you actually may not even know what your home is zoned to, what school it is. So that's something you'll want to ask your agent up front and just make sure that you're aware of that and that you market that correctly.
And as a buyer, you may not know exactly what school district you want to be in or why. So getting familiar with those current school ratings, there's several websites out there, niche.com, greatschools.org, lots of ways to go in and do that research. And that's going to be an important factor for your budget if you're a buyer. And then also what we're going to, potentially the price evaluation if we're a seller.
Absolutely.
Question 4, what should I know about property taxes and homestead exemptions in Frisco?
Yeah, so a lot of people probably don't even realize that dependent on county and school district and city, your property taxes can be completely different. And that's the other thing, just like the last point we said, you can actually be in the city of Frisco, Little Elm ISD, Denton County, and you're likely going to have lower taxes than someone in Frisco City, Collin County and Frisco ISD. I'm trying to get all of those out there. So that's something you want to make sure of. If you have a lower budget, then maybe you need to be in the city of Frisco with Little Elm ISD and Denton County so that you have those lower property taxes. And that's something that will significantly impact you over the years as well.
Not only that, but then the homestead exemption. A lot of people, especially, moving here from out of state or what this might look like, our homestead exemption can be filed as soon as you move into that home, take possession, and you have your driver's license current and up to date with that new address.
It has to be both owners or all owners of the home have to have their ID changed.
So filing those homestead exemptions saves you $100,000 off the appraised value. And I believe we just voted in that in the state of Texas, we're gonna save $140,000 in total appraised value on the assessment. So that saves you taxes just right off the bat. If it's a second home or something like that, you're not going to get your homestead exemption, obviously, but it does make a huge impact on those homeowners that it is actually their homestead.
Yeah, and it's completely free to file this. You just go on callincad.com and they'll take you, or DentonCAD, depending on what county you're in. And it'll take you to where you can submit that document, and you only have to submit it once. This isn't something you have to submit yearly. So make sure you go ahead and do that right when you move in. Keep it top of mind so that 10 years from now, you don't look back and you're like, dang, I could have saved $100,000, or wait, that would have been $1 million in property taxes, right? Assessed value, not actually your taxes. But question number 5 that you'll want to ask yourself if you're buying or selling, is this property in a mud or PID, and how is that going to affect me over time?
It could affect you hugely.
Absolutely, especially with a brand new home, because as we've talked about in other videos, a MUD is going to be a municipal utility district, and this is a tax that's added on to your property taxes, and this is on there for life.
Yes, there are some that claim it has an end date. Not necessarily true. Just assume you're going to pay it for the entire time you own the home, and it stays moving forward. Whereas a PID
has a lifetime. It is a public improvement district, and this is a debt that you're basically paying off as a homeowner to be in that neighborhood. That's just kind of how that works. But what is going to impact you the most is if you move into a brand new home in a PID, you have 15 to 30 years to pay that off. If you move into a pre-existing neighborhood that the home is 10 years old, you may only have 5 to 10 years to pay that off. So that might be something you want to take into account if that is a huge issue for your mortgage amount, if that's a concern.
So in a lot of cases, when you look up the tax rate for a specific property, you may only see that county, city, school district tax. There can be a MUD or PID on top of that tax. So we don't want to go down the rabbit hole. We have other videos about muds and PIDs, but this is something that you need to ask your agent about if you're looking at a home and you're unsure. They should be educating you on this through the process, but make sure you educate yourself as well. Question number 6, how do you handle construction deals and new builder negotiations?
Yeah, this is something that your agent needs to be very, very well versed in new construction, because this is actually probably one of the toughest jobs for a real estate agent.
It is, and it is the number one time a buyer does not use a realtor. They walk into the sales office, they have a sales agent, and that sales agent becomes their resource. And unfortunately, that sales agent represents the seller.
The builder, which means you do not have an upper hand against that builder, and nobody is on your side. At the end of the day, that sales rep is working for the builder, which means they're looking for the best possible outcome for the builder.
And I want to make a quick note, because the thing that we hear from a lot of buyers who did not use a realtor when buying from a builder is, I wanted to save the commission, the buyer agent commission. And I would like to point out that we have very, very, very strong relationships with our builders. Our local builders know and understand that usually the realtor has the connection to the buyer. We bring them into the office. They are happy to compensate us. And it does not affect the bottom line of the sales price of the property at all.
And no matter how much they tell you that if you don't use a realtor, you're going to get more of a discount, you probably still didn't get a bigger discount, because that's a totally separate bucket of money that builders have. It doesn't come from what they can give back to the buyer.
Right. And so when we're looking at this for our buyers, our clients, we are not just looking at what this home might appraise for, how it compares to other resale properties, locally nearby, but then we look at, what is this builder going to offer? What can they give our clients? And we've seen some huge things right now in a buyer's market. Those builders, man, they're doing all kinds of things. They're giving us fixed rate buy downs. They're giving us $25,000 to $40,000 in upgrade incentives, appliances. There's lots and lots of things we can negotiate with the builder. And think about it like walking into the car dealership, right? You walk into the car dealership. I was
going to use the same exact analogy.
And the guy that works at the car dealership is like, yes, here's the sticker price. And if you buy it, you've really kind of screwed yourself.
Yeah, and guess what? You weren't negotiating for yourself. And that's the problem that people see in real estate, is they go in and think they can negotiate for themselves, but they don't understand what the builders actually have to offer. So they usually don't end up getting a better deal.
Yeah, and especially when we're in a shifting market, there's a lot out there that can really be set on the table, but we have to ask for it. So knowing to ask for it is really where the biggest impact in your bottom line and what your total closing cost is going to be. And having a realtor, especially in an area that has a lot of new construction, it's very important that your realtor is familiar with that area, that market, and maybe even that specific builder that you're working with.
Yeah, a lot of times we do spend time building relationships with those sales representatives. So sometimes they'll send us off-market deals. They'll send us, hey, this is what's upcoming. If you have a good relationship with a builder, sometimes they'll be like, hey, this is what we have coming up. We'll give you a deal, whatever it may be. It's kind of like a car. If you know the car salesman, they usually text you when a new car comes in before anything else happens. So we just want to make sure that we're that resource for you if your agent isn't doing so. Question number 7 is, what happens during the option period and inspection process?
A lot.
Yeah, and I think this is something that a lot of buyers and sellers are not aware of, and they actually don't know what goes into this. And I always get asked, what's the option fee? How much is the earnest money? What all does that entail?
Yeah, so the option period is our option to terminate.
Yes.
So our buyer is actually purchasing let's say a 7-day window to do all of our inspections, normally a general home inspection. But if there's a pool, we want to do a pool inspection. There's a lot, we can do foundation inspections,
plumbing.
We can do HVAC. There's all of these things we might need to do outside of a general home inspection. But during this, let's say 7-day window, maybe our buyer purchased it in the contract for $250 there. So we purchased it for $250. And then during the 7 days, can we terminate for any reason, or what do we do?
Yeah, so you can terminate within the option period, and this is generally the safest period to cancel the contract. So if you have, maybe you got cold feet, that's the worst thing, but if you got cold feet, the option period is your time to get out of that. Worst case scenario, you don't get out during the option period, you lose your earnest money, or you're in breach of contract.
You could. There's some other loopholes.
Yeah.
That's another conversation. But during this inspection process, we want our buyers to be very, very confident in the house that they're purchasing.
Yeah.
We don't want surprises. Now, an inspector is not going to potentially find everything, but we should find big things. If we have plumbing issues, if we have, a leak in the roof, something that maybe hasn't come through the ceiling yet, so the seller is unaware of these things. This is also the opportunity for our buyer to negotiate again, right? We've already come to the contract. We've already agreed on a sales price, but now we're going to negotiate repairs or funds in lieu of repairs. And that is a huge impact to the buyer and potentially the seller.
You'll also want to ask your real estate agent who they have connections with that are licensed repairmen and licensed inspectors, so that you can make sure that you're making the best option possible, so that you know what you're getting into.
Question number 8, what should I look for in HOA rules, fees, and resale certificates?
Yeah, I know. This is a dreaded one, and it's an additional fee just on top of property taxes and mortgage and insurance and all of these things. It can be a very substantial cost, though. So as it relates to HOA, if you have a boat and you don't have anywhere to put it, we maybe don't want to look in an HOA. These are things that you'll want to ask your agent, like, hey, I have an RV, I have a boat, I have 12 cars, whatever that may be. HOA rules would tell you not to do that. So you'll want to ask your agent what the HOA allows and doesn't allow. And then as it relates to a resale certificate, this is a lot of things that buyers and sellers don't know anything about. So whenever you purchase a home, you actually get a resale certificate that states how much the transfer fee is going to be, how much the HOA dues are, and if there's any other fees related to HOA whenever you're selling the property.
And the biggest problem with that is we do not get this information up front.
Yeah, you get this from your title company usually.
But well into the contract, 14, 18 days after you're in contract. So while there is a stipulation within the Texas state contract that says, once you get your HOA information, you have 3 days to review and cancel. So you can cancel the contract after you review those HOA documents. That is not ideal for any buyer or seller. We've gotten 2 or 3 weeks into the process. So understanding that you are buying in an HOA or not, and what that means for you as a general overview. So buying an HOA in Frisco is going to be 99% of homes. There's a very small number of homes, really all across North Texas, that are not in HOA. There are going to be HOA fees. You'll want to understand what those include. There's neighborhoods that include front lawn maintenance, for example. So that's going to have a higher HOA fee, but you're getting something for that additional cost.
Yeah. And then as it relates back to the transfer fees, these can be between $500 all the way up to $2,500, $3,000. So be aware, ask your agent how they deal with that. And when they write it into the contract, make sure that you're aware that it generally states like seller to pay up to, buyer to pay up to, so that you know how much your fee is going to be potentially.
Yeah, that fee can be a huge difference and a big surprise at closing.
Question number 9, how will my commute and lifestyle fit into different Frisco neighborhoods and communities? This is a big question. It's something that I think a lot of people have started asking in the last few years, especially with the tollway, Preston, all of the major roads in Frisco that lead us to Dallas. And it kind of, it depends on your lifestyle, depends on where you go daily, depends on your commute to work. But honestly, a lot of Frisco is not going to have a significant impact on your commute times.
Right. And, one thing that we like to ask our buyers, what does your lifestyle look like? Are you more concerned with schools because you have young kids? Are you more concerned with lifestyle, dining, retail? I want to be close to the PGA, or I want to be as far away from Universal Studios as possible, right? There's a lot of things that are going to impact future traffic patterns as well, which will likely impact our commute times. But it doesn't make a huge difference really, no matter where you're at in Frisco, unless you do really want to be near, a big retail area or not near a big retail area.
Or if you commute to work and you do need to be close to 121 or the tollway, we could get you closer to those areas so that it could cut down on your commute time potentially.
Question number 10, what flood risk or insurance factors should I check before buying?
Yeah, so people actually ask about flood risks very, very often. They have a property and there's a pond on it, or they have a property that is close to a lake, maybe not on the lake. And they're like, well, do I need flood insurance?
So we like to check FEMA flood maps. That is definitely where we start. I'm going to say we don't have a ton of floodplain that you're going to be dealing with in an HOA established neighborhood in Frisco. That's not going to be the normal or the standard, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a flood history of a home or a flood risk in certain areas due to drainage or low-lying areas. So it is something to ask about. But moving from other parts of the country, that's usually when we get this question, is people who live in other parts of the country that living in a floodplain is fairly common, and then having flood insurance. We are not in an area like that, so it's really not something that impacts us normally inside the HOA communities, but it is something that we would definitely discuss with our client, especially if we're looking at a property that does land in a FEMA flood zone of any sort.
Yeah, and the other thing that you can ask about for insurance purposes is you can ask about wind and hail.
Yeah.
Generally, wind is going to be across all of the Metroplex. As far as it relates to hail, though, there are specific areas, cities, and just kind of little bubbles in the Metroplex
within.
Yes, that are more likely to have hail damage. So you can look into that if that's something that you really, if you want to like pins and needle everything, you can look into that just so that you can look at your deductible for your roof, and maybe you definitely need that 1% deductible, or maybe it's not as necessary.
Yeah, and I would say that insurance factor is important in North Texas.
Our bonus tip today is going to be future growth and what to expect with new neighborhoods.
Yeah, the development happening in and around Frisco is still massive.
Absolutely.
Well, a lot of it is built out from a residential standpoint. So we don't have as many brand new neighborhoods coming in.
Yeah.
Now we're building out in the retail and entertainment segments.
Yeah, and those are getting neighborhoods added on to those areas. But like we mentioned earlier, Universal Studios, PGA is expanding like crazy. We're about to get a massive shopping center near PGA on the tollway. So these are things that if you want future equity growth, you may want to be in these newer neighborhoods, in these up and coming, huge, booming communities. But if you want kind of more a sleepy neighborhood or something that's a little bit quieter, we can find you neighborhoods that are pre-existing, and maybe those newer neighborhoods just aren't what you're looking for.
Yeah, and the benefit to this all the new retail and the growth and those things is obviously it brings in tourism tax dollars, which should long-term help the residents of Frisco. But then you also have to think there are existing neighborhoods that will be positively impacted from a value growth of just these new things being added and built and developed. So our value growth in Frisco really has not slowed down. All across North Texas, we continue to see 6 to 7% on average value growth year over year.
Yeah. That doesn't mean every single year, okay?
Caveat, asterisk, right? We had COVID. We had like 15 and 20% increases. We're going to level out for a period of time. But when we go back historically and we look at the last 10, 15, 20 years, we had an average of 6 to 7% year over year growth when we average it out long term.
Yeah. And you might be a seller right now thinking that is not true. I am seeing a decrease in what I can sell my house for. We are leveling out. That's what we just mentioned. You're not actually losing value of your home. You never had that value. It was extra value.
It's like the stock market. We call those unrealized gains.
Yes. You never had that money in your pocket anyways. It was just something you hoped to have in your pocket. So if that's something you're concerned about, please give us a call. Drop any of your questions down below. We can always run a market value analysis for you if you have any questions, as long as you don't have another realtor. And we will see you guys in our next video.
Bye, guys.